You are now tuned into the sounds of
Big Nate Sports Talk.
It's on all the time, anytime.
Take it away, feeling too good to me. Chilling all day, all in your space is where I wanna be. Here in this room, what did you do? I just can't get enough. Too caught up in your love. I've been trying to forget, but you won't let me. Something in my brain wants you. I've been hanging by myself, asking for help, but nothing seems to work on you. Yeah, you always make me feel like home. Yeah, you never leave my thoughts alone. Yeah, you're the reason I'm going out.
You are now tuned in to Big Nate Sports Talk, the show that's on all the time, anytime. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for all content. And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Nathan Snell. Bring your sports game with Big Nate Sports Talk.
Well, first of all, listen, it's interesting about all these young guys today. They never call on us and say, hey, thanks for the kind word and telling me how great a player I am. But when they play like crap and we call them out, we don't know what we're talking about. Listen, I'm easy to find.
Cut it off! I am having a very bad day. I am in no mood. This, today, is one of the worst days that I've had in a long time. I'm not in the mood to play with anybody. I mean, damn it! I'm ticked off!
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is your host, Nathan Snell of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast. I hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all staying safe. Hope the week was well for you. Hope the weekend is going well for you. This is episode 26 of the podcast, season 11. In this episode, we are talking about Maryland football. But before we get into the video, there's a few things I'd like to say up front. Thank you for those that have subscribed to the channel. We have finally eclipsed 200 subscribers, the road to 1,000, and so forth. The grind has not stopped. I do appreciate the support that I've gotten along the channel this far. I would never have thought, even imagined, getting this far. So I appreciate all the love and support that I've gotten, whether it's here on YouTube or through Apple, Google Podcasts. I do appreciate the support. Couple things. There is an episode that I have not uploaded. That is episode 18 with Nicholas Rosario. That will be uploaded with the date. It was already recorded. I should have made it live, but I never had the opportunity to upload it, but it will still be uploaded. It's episode 18. If you notice some one of the episodes is misnumbered, I will fix that. Coming down the pipe, as far as some other videos, Maryland women's basketball starts tomorrow as we face George Mason, if I'm not mistaken. We're ranked number 17. The Washington Commanders unfortunately lost to the Minnesota Vikings. And then the Baltimore Ravens are playing Monday Night Football against the New Orleans Saints. So with that being said, in this video, we're talking about Maryland football. It's been 3 weeks since you last saw a video from me regarding Maryland, the Maryland Terrapins. And I'm actually kind of hindsight, kind of glad I actually kind of did it this way, because I wanted to see a couple things where some things I saw before we went on our little bye week. So I'm going to start with the first game. Indiana. Couple things that I took into consideration. I know Talia coming into this game was dealing with an injury, and Billy Edwards Jr. stepped in. One thing that I've noticed, and I kind of want you guys to stay with me as I am leading up to Saturday's game. We beat the Indiana Hoosiers 38-33. We were 500 coming into this game, winning that game. We were at 500, and we improved to 5-2 at the time. It was not really a good football game in terms of discipline. It was a lot of sloppy performance. Even it was a mediocre Indiana football team. I thought that when Tully went down with his knee injury, I didn't know what to expect, but he stepped in there and did what he had to do. When I look back at that game, the one thing that stood out to me the most was lack of discipline. You hear me say this as I'm recapping each of the games. Penalties continue to haunt the team. In the game against Indiana, we had just in the opening half was 4 penalties. And there was the holding penalty. And then that had Indiana go up by 3 going into the second half. Like, going into that game, Maryland had committed up until this past weekend, up and going into Indiana, Maryland had committed 50 penalties for almost 450 yards.
I mean, this is some bad stuff. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how much more of this I can take. I just don't know. This is ridiculous. Oh, Lord.
Even in that game against Indiana, the one thing that stood out to me is this is another Big Ten opponent where they're not. Maryland is a good team, but they're falling into bad habits. Penalties allowed Indiana to score, and then the injuries also too played a role. Jaqueen Barrett, Jalen Duncan, they couldn't play. Hypolite II, Gibson. That defense going in that game against Indiana was very vulnerable. But when it mattered, like, guys stepped up. You even had on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Spencer Anderson, I think at one point moved to right guard, and I think it was Maximilian McGee. He took over Anderson's spot. I mean, making those kind of adjustments. But I think also too to take in consideration in that game as well, Billy Edwards, he did his job. It wasn't sexy, but he did what needed to be done to win the game. When it came mattered, he was smart and he was confident with the ball. I mean, that's what you're looking for. Like, there were mistakes, but like Dan Enos, to me, when Talia went down, kind of looked like, oh, what am I going to do? So, I mean, those are the things I saw in the Indiana game. Now, if you're Indiana at the time, I think tackling was the biggest issue on the defensive side for Indiana. I know at the time, Cam Jones was dealing with an injury. I think when I look at a guy like Aaron Reese Simmons, I think he could definitely be a good NFL wide receiver. I mean, he's coming from North Carolina, route running. He's a complete wide receiver. I mean, there was a lot of times where he created separation on our corners, and he definitely is somebody that I think a lot of teams will look for. And I don't know off the top of my head. I know they were going I believe they were playing. They're at a bye, so I think at that point, at that particular side, they were the only team to in the Big Ten not have a win. So I know they got to face. I know they had to face Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan State, and then Purdue. And I think I'm not sure if they lost the previous weekend or this weekend, but if they do, it's going to be hard for them to qualify for a bowl game. And that's what I saw in that game. Next, the win against Northwestern. Billy Edwards Jr. still was in this game because Talia was just not ready to come back, in my personal opinion. This win marked our first season since 2001 that we were bowl eligible. One thing, I've said this before and I'll say it again, it's a next man up mentality. I think the key for Maryland is that the young guys, I'm talking about your freshmen and your transfers, like coming out of Wake Forest, Billy Edwards, redshirt freshman. Talia was a game time decision, but he just was not ready. And I'm going to say my thoughts when we get to this game against Wisconsin. I felt in the first half he was a little uncomfortable. I could see like there was some jitters. To me, he only had 12 combined plays in the first 3 drives. I thought that when I would like his Enos and Coach Loxley, they really have to calm their guys down. And that's something I noticed. I thought that when it mattered, he finished a game of 18 to 28, 166 yards, 1 touchdown, and 66 yards on the ground. So he did really all the things that he needed to do. Yeah, it wasn't the best game, but there were a lot of opportunities that were left on the field, if that makes sense. Ramon Henby, I am pretty much safe to say I have a feeling he'll declare for the NFL draft. I'm not sure if I don't know yet, but he's now pretty much he is the number 1 running back in this running back committee. That game was his 4th 100th yard plus rushing on the season. The last time I think that happened was Anthony McFarland, and that was against Rutgers back in 2019. He finished the game with almost 180 yards. He's on pace to rush for 1,000 yards. And unfortunately, Littleton II, I believe, hyperextended his knee in practice. But again, Henby finished the game with 24 carries. And hey, sometimes you got to do the things you got to do. And I guess I said that game again, that win against Northwestern, that was we clinched our first bowl eligibility since 2001. That's the first time in 12 years we've improved to 6-2. And hey, that is a plus. I have been fighting this narrative that Maryland is just a basketball school. Maryland has had success as a football program. I cannot say enough of the job that Coach Loxley has done for this program. He has changed the culture. He has done a lot. When he took over a team that, from a coaching perspective, after the Jordan McNair thing, he completely changed the culture. He has guys brought in. These guys trust him, and he trusts them. And I'm giving it like another 3 to 4 years. This Maryland team could definitely be a program that most of the college football will not sleep on. Again, knowing that you didn't have a lot of players out there, you didn't have Barnum, Hypolite II, Verdarius Green, Gibson, Hypolite II. We're down with 10 points. But once again, defense stepped up. That was a key. And again, the run game also made things easier. Now, we look at Northwestern. I think the thing is, I like their offense. I can't think of the quarterback. I think his name is Brandon Sullivan. He has, to me, he started instead of Ryan Helinski. for one half, they looked completely different. They looked good, and the other half they didn't. I think he finished, if I remember correctly, he finished the game with 18 of 24 for 143 yards, a touchdown. There was a lot of mistakes that Sullivan made. I know there was an interception through in the third quarter, but they still scored 24 points. Like, I think their loss was in the third quarter. I mean, when you didn't turn the ball over. I mean, you converted on 5 of 8 third downs, if I remember correctly, and they outpaced us by, I want to say it was like 21 yards in terms of running the ball. It just was, they just made mistakes at the wrong time. It was a tale of two halves. I could see Sullivan really struggling at times to understand the coverage that the defense was giving him. And I look at it as, look, you just got to fix what you got to fix. Now, coming into this team, this is the same Northwestern team that I believe was back in 2020, if I remember correctly. They were the 10th in the nation. And, you know, I know I remember correctly, made 4 straight bowl games, maybe 2015, 2018. It just seems like, again, it just was just tail of second halves. That was their 6th straight loss. I know the last 13, they're like 2 going into that game, like 2-11 in the Big Ten. So I think it's just, they just have to just figure some things out, and I think they'll be okay. So those were my observations going into our little bye week. And let me really quick, I want to play a clip with Coach Loxley after the win against Northwestern. Here is the clip. Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't share.
Came in and it shows when you prepare to. All right, we've been all about committed and connected all season long. We weren't at our best today, but the guys that came in and had to take roles on today came in, and it shows when you prepare the right way, the next man up mentality works. Billy did a tremendous job. Those young old linemen did a tremendous job. And if that doesn't show you that when we face adversity, we just got to come together, nothing will. Congratulations on a big win. We'll get ourselves healthy, put the work in this week. We got a great opportunity for homecoming in the shell. Now let's sing this song. You got me? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey, we're behind you. Raise high, like it go. Yeah, clap your hands so glorious. And to see our team victorious. We got the team, boy. We got the team, boy. Keep fighting, don't hey, 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 L-A-R-Y-L-A-N-D. Woo!
I love those guys. I'm sorry, my mic was muted. But really quick, I do want to take a quick 30-second break as we prepare, as I transition into this past Saturday's loss against those Wisconsin Badgers. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Then you won't get spoken to. People only see you when you up, then they notice you. Trying to be a legend, create lines that's quotable. Only the real shall last, and I only know a few. People when they feelings always acting emotional. Ain't about a check, then it ain't negotiable. Gotta show respect to the people that's posting you. Soon to be on posters posted up like the older dudes.
Now we aging like fine wine, how we supposed to do. Peep the shade on the timelines, this time posted cool. Shit is black and white like photos from a disposable. Certain situations you ain't end up uncontrollable. All up in their head, I be so confused. I just brush it off, peep the shoulder moves. We all got the same 24, so it's no excuse. Switch it up. We could rap or produce the things you can't have.
And we're back. And now the Maryland Terrapins, after a little mini bye week, played the Wisconsin Badgers. It was an away game for us, and the Maryland Terrapins painfully lost 23-10.
What was that? What the hell was that? I'm sorry the H words and the D words aren't appropriate over the airwaves, but it's going to be today. I don't know how much more of this I can take. How in God's name?
Okay. This had to be the most disappointing game I ever saw from the Maryland Terrapins. And that's being honest. Coming off a bye week, I was excited to see Talia. Even though the last two games Billy Edwards Jr. started, I get it. Talia is more of a dynamic passer. He's more hands-on. He can do things with his feet. But weather should never be the excuse when playing this game of football. And this is probably, I wouldn't put it up there against probably the embarrassing loss against Iowa where he threw 5 interceptions. But that was probably one of the most disappointing games. I mean, he only completed 10 passes for 77 yards. 42 of them came in the final drive. I mean, again, we can talk about the weather conditions. I mean, it was raining, it was cold, but that was an eyesore. I mean, there were a few times where Talia didn't really have much of an opportunity to pass the ball. I mean, his offensive line did a very, very poor job of blocking. I think that they had their true freshman, I can't think of his name, starting in this game. I mean, I think it might have been Colton Deary. I know Lunsford was out, but I mean, Deary, just did not have a great game snapping the ball, constantly spiking into the ground or sailing over Talia's head. I mean, those mistakes are costly, and one of them turned into, which I thought we could have opportunity to score a touchdown, but turned into a field goal. Like, Talia was sacked 3 times in the first half. And as our running game, we only had 34 yards rushing. I mean, every time he would hand off, whether it was Henby, Littleton II, Ramon Brown, no answers. No answers whatsoever. And again, and looking on the defensive side of the ball, we had no answers stopping the run. I mean, their running game, almost 300 yards rushing. There was the 89-yard touchdown that we gave up. That has been the bread and butter for Wisconsin. That's been their identity. And that's kind of been our weakness in stopping the run. It showed against Michigan when Blake Corum ran, I think it was almost 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was worse when we played Northwestern where we allowed 215 yards. And then here it is, 211 yards in the first half. I mean, they averaged about 6 to 7 yards per carry. I mean, they took advantages. They rushed the ball 30 more times than they passed it. I mean, Graham Metz completed the ball 5 times. I mean, and we made no adjustments to that. This
is some bad stuff. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how much more of this I can take. I just don't know. This is ridiculous. Oh, Lord.
When I look at this schedule, this arguably is the most interesting month of November for Maryland, because now we got to go to Penn State and Ohio State's coming here. And those are two Big Ten matchups. I still think we'll beat Rutgers, but we finished 500. But I'm still holding out that Maryland will win eight to 9 games. But the one thing, like the way the schedule's shaping, it's favorable in Maryland's hands. I would have won. This is a Wisconsin team that has been playing better. Jim Leonard, shout out to Jim Leonard, former Baltimore Raven. They made us go right back into those bad habits, lack of discipline. We're not making the adjustments. Loxley, Eno, Williams, coaches, they all got to take some blame in this. Everybody just was not prepared for this game. Like, you got to come out and respond better to Penn State, because you're an underdog. We're now the underdog, and then we're going to be against Ohio State. Like, to me, starting off 3-0, that was fool's gold. But seeing the things that I have seen, Maryland, it's going to take the guys that have been here before, the leaders. I remember him last year, Coach Loxley talked about the seniors leading. It's going to take leadership, but it's also going to take everybody to look and just look at each other and say, we got this. But there's also some things I would like to see change. I think sometimes we get a little too trigger happy with passing the ball. Like, defensively, they ran the ball almost 300 yards, and we did not make those adjustments. That can't happen. I mean, we got to go up against Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. That can't happen. I mean, this is looking at the rest of the schedule. I know we got this month. After this month is Rutgers. Looking at it, a lot of roster turnover. And I know they're kind of at the bottom of the Big Ten, but I still think we'll beat one of those, either Penn State or Ohio State. If anything, we're going to keep it competitive, because I just don't think you're going to see the same Maryland football team you saw out there today. But on the Wisconsin side, after beating Iowa and Nebraska, I think that Wisconsin will make a bowl game. Graham Metz, to me, has been consistent. This offense has found a rhythm that, from what I've seen, they've clearly lacked. Even though he only passed the ball 5 times, he's leading this offense. That running game was the key. I'm not quick to push the panic button and say after 6-2, we're 6-3, and we're going to Penn State and our season's going before us. I'm not doing that. I know we got to fix, and I think both us and the Wisconsin Badgers will make a bowl game. Because if anything, I don't know, but maybe Wisconsin gets a team like Oklahoma or Northern Illinois. Maybe we get a Florida or Mississippi State. I'm just throwing those teams on top of my head. I just saying, because we got 3 games left, and this is it. So I'm very, very disappointing, but I know these guys will be better. And Coach Lockley said himself, we just didn't prepare for these guys today, and I think they know it. But I'm confident that they'll go into Penn State and they know what they have to do in order to win, because I still am holding out this team will win 8 games before it's all said and done. So that's my Maryland football recap. I do apologize. I know it's been 3 weeks since you last saw the video from me for Maryland football, but I had to get this out because I said, well, let me see what it looks like when they come off the bye. And there are some things I just didn't. This was disappointing to see, but that's my final take on it. But I do want to move on to our last subject of the podcast, and that is final message.
Incoming message.
Thoughts are running through my mind, so I took some time to find a minute or two to organize.
My final message is November's here. We finally get our hour of sleep back. Daylight savings time is officially, or so we fall back an hour. Finish the rest of the year on strong. Let's have a good week. Let's try to be a little bit better than where we were yesterday and be better for tomorrow. That's really my final message. Hey, we're human. We all make mistakes. We're not perfect. Things happen, and we just have to be better. Learn and grow from mistakes, move forward, and that's when you see growth. But that's my final message of the podcast. But until then, this is your host, Nathan Snell. Thank you so much for tuning in to Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast. I hope each and every one of you have a great evening. Please like, comment, subscribe. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Y'all have a good night. Stay up.
But I get sick of these guys complaining. These young guys, they never call us and say, when a coach is wrong, I'm going to call him out. But when players are wrong, I'm going to call them out. Thanks for the kind words. But listen, I'm going to criticize guys that they deserve it. And listen, they can kiss my ass if they don't like it.
I respect winning so much, man. And I'm going to just tell you, it's the first time we've been bowl eligible this early since 2001. Go, baby. Fellas, you have earned the right. You have earned the right. Let's sing this damn song, man. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, up. There's time to let you go. There's nothing that's so glorious as to see our team victorious. We got to see more. We got to see more. Keep fighting, don't give in. L-A-O-M-A-N-D, Maryland.
Incoming message.
Thank you for tuning in to Big Nate Sports Talk. If you enjoyed that episode and you want to see more content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Bring your sports game on Big Nate Sports Talk.
It's on all the time, anytime.
Thank you. And you help me retain my sanity. Thank you. I want to thank you.
Broken future. All the plans you made in your heart grew just to die. And now your damaged goods, damaged should have never been. Thought you were bulletproof, look at you, what happened? Did she hurt you?